this matchup goes, it's going to be the Lee Sin jungle, as expected, because his solo laning has been nerfed quite significantly. Gwen going to be on the top side of the map, and I think that means that as T1, you're pretty happy to play Lucian into this. You have range there. You have a Viego for extra support too, so if Gwen decides to trade aggressively, you can punish that. And, you know, the Galio here is going to be very powerful at, you know, roaming, right? He's semi-global to the top side of the map, so you have a lot of power there with some early prio.
Yeah, I would imagine that's the idea, right? To kind of be able to follow Ryze on some of his rotations that he can make around the map and just kind of mirror him. There's a lot of magic damage on the side of Live Sandbox. They have the Gwen, the Ryze, even the Gragas support down there. And so I feel like this Galio from Faker is actually, you know, it's not something we see all the time, but I think it can definitely get some nice value in this game.
Yeah, feels like old times watching the mid Galio here played by Faker.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the coin here for Live Sandbox, you have a composition that is very sturdy throughout the early parts of the game. Once Summit gets his Leeching Leer online, some of these early fights around the Drake and the first few Rift Heralds, you know, the first Rift Herald being the most crucial, but even the second, is really strong team fighting here. They have the backup of the Ryze scaling later on, so it's hard to say who really gets an edge in this draft. It's just going to be one of those games where execution is everything. But it does feel like T1 have so much more agency on the map because they have this top prio and they have this Galio that's, again, semi-global. A lot of poke damage later on. And the Viego that is going to love the setup here. When you have the culling to get people's health bars low, the Varus damage to get people's health bars low, owner's like, I'm ready to get those resets. I'm ready to take those souls.
Yeah. I actually also really love the Alistar pick. You know, Carrier is another one of these players where it's like, okay, he's just great on so many different champions, and his champion pool is quite large as well, you know? So he's going to pull out the Alistar again. This is going to be his first time this season, but it feels really good because you get a lot of these kind of low-range champions that do a lot of burst damage on the side of Live Sandbox, but you imagine the Gwen, the Alistar gets right in there. The Ryze, he's trying to set something up. You can chain a lot of CC with the Alistar that follows up, and then the Galio comes in right after.
Yeah.
Ballista you can lock down, and even just like Alistar combo into Galio taunt, if they get that onto pretty much anybody, they have enough damage in their comp. I mean, Varus and Lucian alone, not to mention the Viego for cleanup. Like, I feel like that one support pick really is like the pin that keeps it all together. For
sure. And I think that Summit is, you know, he's not a tank, right, per se. He is very tanky. I mean, Gwen can survive through a lot with her healing and does have really great tanky-based stats, which is still hard to believe when you think about what this champion's kit does. But if she can block a lot of that damage and she could stand in between, like the culling coming through and some of these backline members, Croco as well, going to be fairly tanky. You could survive through the initial part of the exchange. You do have good damage output. As Keria, they eat some damage.
And that's okay, you know? Alistar's not really trying to do too much here at level 1, and Gumayusi is doing such an awesome job of just poking back, so they get the Ignite immediately away, and that's going to be some pressure taken away from the bottom lane of Live Sandbox.
Yeah, you're always just trying to push the limits with Kalista, and that's what Live Sandbox look for here, but the Ignite, a bit of a overextension, as you say, arguably here, especially because Alistar just has so much sustain in general, and it's level 1, so you level up, get a ton of health. On the top side of the map, this is a very early potential gank here for Owner. He wants to steal some of these camps away, steal these Krugs.
Yeah, he's
not so
scared.
Strong early.
Yeah, he's like, okay, Croco, you want to go? The Smite comes in. This is just a straight up one-on-one, and Owner is not winning it.
He doesn't have Smite anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't have Smite, but the Flash comes in, and there's going to be first blood over to the Viego of all people, as now the top laners are fighting. And the teleport will have to come in from Faker to try to save this. Will he get there on time? The taunt comes in, and the knockup will be enough as the ward and the teleport is enough to make T1 win the fight.
Oh, I don't know about this one, Fate. He's going for the flash, though, and he gets him.
Okay. Fate not to be outdone. I like it.
I don't believe they had vision of him there before he flashed over, so...
No, they did have a ward in that rush.
He was on the edge of it, and I think if you respond to that a little bit better, you might be able to pull it off, but it's a 2-for-2 trade at the end of the day. But, I mean, guess what? The Lucian's coming back to lane here. He's going to have that prio, and it just kind of continues here for T1, topside control. I love the proactivity from Owner. This is the kind of player he is, right? This is the identity that changes when you put this jungler in over Cuz, right? He's just so hyper-aggressive that you look for plays like this.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was just kind of chuckling at how gigantic that wave was. I think that was just slowly pushing into Fate while all this was happening, as here's the replay.
Yeah, the smite comes through, you know, here for Croco second to survive, and the Krugs are not doing him any favor, Owner any favors, right? He's got a lot of that Krug aggro, so it takes a ton of damage. And the kills are traded here, of course, but I want to watch this flash that comes through from Fate over the wall, because eventually Faker does teleport over, as Kana's like, okay, I don't have any items yet. So I'm going to need your help. Does end up taking out the Gwen. And then, yeah, no, he should have been seen here, but Kana, unfortunately, just a little bit late, and they have a ward there over the wall, so he knows exactly where he needs to toss that damage in. Pretty massive advantage in CS for the mid lane of Live Sandbox, but the top lane for Kana, that's the trade-off here.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for with that pressure. And as you mentioned, Lucian can easily just roll with this. All summoners down now. It's like, well, you're just going to have to deal with this. As we're taking a look at the Galio versus Ryze matchup specifically. Faker getting locked up here, and Fate has double buff. This is just a straight up solo kill as Faker's just trying to clear out the wave. And he did not respect the damage of Ryze and double buff, I suppose.
Double buff super powerful in this case, and he aggressively traded forward. Gets the prism there. Really well played, and unfortunate overextension. We've seen this so many times, actually, in the LCK this season. He has Realm Warp, so he's going up.
Yeah, and kind of just says, well, I have a control ward, so... Oh, everybody's up here with me. I guess I'll just try to get on top of Summit here. Nearly is able to burst him down, but 3-on-1 is not fair.
Croco blocking the culling damage there, so it's just not enough to get the kill. It was really well played there from the Lee Sin. And that's... I mean, about as good as it gets here, as we're going to watch Fate's first-person view on this. Faker gets the knock-up here, and he just gets the prism really easy. Cover mid, I got it, never mind, basically. He's like, I'm going for it. Oh, okay, we're good. He actually believed that Faker was baiting. As we watch this one more time, Kana hits 6 with a huge advantage that he has, but Croco blocks the culling damage, and they're able to make this a guaranteed kill. Fate doesn't have to use his teleport, so he can get straight back to lane.
That's just a beautiful understanding of the situation of the fight, right? It's like, well, we could just try to kill Lucian as fast as possible, and I'm Lee Sin, and that's what I do, right, in the early stages of the game. But instead, as you mentioned, just hops in front of that culling, denies the damage, knowing that Kana's only recourse is to try to go for the trade kill.
Yeah, he has no way out, so that's your only option. It is denied, as it's a great start from Fate, right? He picks up 2 kills early on. And we talked about how these two comps, you know, end up clashing later on in the game, and the Ryze damage output is the consistent damage that you're going to be looking for if this does go late as Live Sandbox. And having 2 kills this early on in the game means that you can continue to abuse the Galio in mid. He's going to get another blue buff here, as you can see on the minimap. And that's just going to be a tragedy for Faker, right? There's not much he can do, as Kana once again getting dove on, but Faker is coming up.
Summit's really getting in there. And, yeah, just a control ward in that brush. I suppose that Summit with his ultimate just feeling like, you know, he's got enough to trade back, and with the plated steel caps and the Doran's ring, actually, he's feeling good enough to go for that.
Owner is going to clear that ward, and Summit will just completely get away with this. Now, Rift Herald is spawning, so all of these rotations up for T1 end up being very valuable, even though they're not able to stop Summit or grab a kill onto him. They're in better position here on this Herald. Now, that isn't to say that that's going to stay the way that it is, because Ryze is nearby, they know this. And I really love how, with the force back here, someone is just going to push the wave. They know Gamusi is bot. And just like that, Live Sandbox grabbed control over this Herald. I just don't think that T1 should look to fight this right now. Not against a Ryze that's this fed. He gets any more kills or assists here, and the game just straight up ends.
Yeah. It's a good point, you know. You could have just said, oh, they might lose the fight, but actually, you risk giving Fate just way too much at this point, and you got to be careful. And this is late, right? I mean, You're coming up here to try to respond, but you're not getting anything. You're clearing out wards, sure, but maybe you could have left Gumayusi down on the bottom side. Maybe he gets one plate and a good back, or maybe you try to trade the Drake, but instead it's a late rotation up to the top. They realize, oh, they've been onto this for quite a while, and they just take it away from under our noses.
Yeah.
Well, we just got to give it away.
It's really unfortunate here for T1 because they knew that even with the positional advantage they had, they just didn't have the staying power to take it, but they didn't want to give it up, right? And both of these teams love their early Herald prio. That's why they oftentimes look for those early leads, the gold leads that explode, that come with a one-team fight on Herald into a massive gold advantage that follows. But you know, as I've pointed out several times, and as Kronk pointed out, and as you point out in this very game, the opportunity cost of coming to a Herald and grouping when you're already going to lose it is so high. What you could have gotten elsewhere on the map is massive. Gumayusi does not rotate up, as we're going to see a collapse on the Kana.
This is a nice counter gank that does come in. Owner is getting in there, but now Krako's here as well. Kana a little bit too low.
Nice kick.
Here comes Faker, though. He is angry, and he's going to pick up the kill from range as Owner's still getting in there. He's going to pick up that ghost and get ahead and take this plate, guys. Okay, they're not going to take the plate, but maybe they will take it on the next push.
Yeah, Rocco wants to stay for this. Meanwhile, tons of pushing power here for Fate, who decided he could not match the rotation, even though he had Realm Warp. He had teleport disadvantage, and that was one of the big issues here, is we're going to see Effort potentially have a setup. He just hit 6. Nope, not going to happen. They think better of it or they back off because they know he's there. They had the ward. But if we watch the replay of that top gank, like Fate used his teleport earlier when he went up top, right? When he used his Realm Warp there, backed, and then teleported right back to lane. Faker had his, so he knows he has teleport advantage, so they were able to set up the long con play here because Owner is hiding. And once Summit sees Owner, he's like, oh no. And Faker commits the teleport because he's there under turret, but he knows he has that advantage. He cannot be matched. So he can even go under turret here and get the kill onto Summit, who knows he is so dead.
That was a really slick play, is what I'd like to call it. Throws out the winds and just immediately turns because he knows the Gwen is going to die. The dash is down. There's no escape. And it's just as easy as that. Maybe a bit unfortunate they weren't able to pick up the follow-up kill, but still a win. And it gets them on even footing here with Liv Sandbox, who they haven't put down the Rift Herald just yet. So we'll have to wait and see where they decide to throw that one down.
I think if you can set up for it, if you could give Summit a lot of gold here in the top lane, that's where you'd want to do it ideally. You could see he's defensively itemizing here because he's so desperate in this lane. You know, he's got his plated steel caps online, went for the Seeker's Arm Guard. He's trying to get any armor he can on top of his Doran shield. And if you could somehow set up a really nice gank up here, you'd like to put it top, but you might just end up putting it mid to get Fate further ahead, because that's going to be your easiest option.
Yeah.
They are rotating up top at the moment, though, as I say that. Even Effort is here, but that's par for the course for the support player who likes to be support in the top lane.
Yeah, and Faker's on vision here, so they know this is happening, and that's part of the reason why they don't want to actually opt into a 3-on-3 at this moment in time. It's the power of Galio. You know, you have the Rise moving up to the top side and threatening Realm Warp. Well, Galio's right there to join the fight as well.
Once again, Gumayusi going to miss out on some farm here on the bottom side of the map. So that's one of the trade-offs here, even though it looks like a little bit of happy feet on both sides because of Gumayusi's back timing. He loses out as we're going to see it dropped in mid. Here we go.
And the cask is totally denied. Effort will miss that one. As meanwhile, nice little fight up on the top side. Kana's going to deny Summit entry to the lane. The Rift Herald will give a bunch of gold over to Fate and probably Krako, who did drop it down. But at the same time, I mean, T1 are getting little advantages here and there.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those moments where, as T1, you've handled the situation pretty superbly. You could have actually ended up losing Faker there if the cask was good, but he ends up channeling the taunt there. Effort messes up the cask. Faker lives. You clear the plates, but you don't get a turret. You end up pushing back the top laner, who has to teleport back. You get a summoner spell out of this. And this is an incredibly even game. I mean, yes, it is a 500 gold lead, but it's about as even as it gets for these two compositions. I think Liv Sandbox have been proactive enough, and they've gotten enough advantages to where they feel pretty good about things here. But T1 could turn this at a moment's notice on any of these objective fights, because their comp is so good at skirmishing too. And what's really cool about the Galio, like you pointed out, is that he can match Rise's rotations. And that is exactly what Faker looks to do. when we do see these roams, when we do see these aggressive pushes. He can be there in a moment's notice himself. I love this game and how these drafts collide. It's obviously a bit of a breath of fresh air after our last series, but
yeah, true. Very true.
Immortal Shield Bow up now.
Yeah, we've had a good amount of action so far. Not too much from the bottom side of the map, though. They've kind of just been down there farming. There's a 1 CS lead to Prince, so I suppose he wins for now.
TWon definitely making a hard stance about what they feel about the second Rift Herald. Look at the vision control. Look at the commitment of bodies you see around that Baron pit right now. And Live Sandbox, you know, they might just simply give this up because they're a little bit slow on the draw. But it's hard to actually get anything else on the map. You can see it looks like they want to collapse on Faker, but he's got a good read on this. So this might just be Faker living down here and TWon get the Herald. That's the ideal scenario.
Yeah. At the same time, with that pressure, they will be able to pick up that bottom turret, so it might be a trade of turrets here as Kana's trying to pressure up on the top side.
The thing is, it's a trade of turrets here, but when the Rift Herald goes down, it might be threatening an inner turret. And in the past, we talk about the second Rift Herald, it's like, wow, you got a turret-free bottom? Yeah, Faker lives, but this is amazing. Whereas the second Rift Herald has, you know, historically been pretty weak. But on this patch, especially when you have Illusion on the top lane, he's crashing waves into this turret nonstop. If you can get that inner turret on the top side of the map where we see TWon pinging immediately right now, it's actually worth more gold. So this is pretty huge, and they're going for it.
They're trying to get this deep vision in the enemy jungle first. They have a nice little setup with Varus in the mid lane right now, able to clear the waves a little bit faster than Prince. So he can kind of rotate first where Prince has to clear out the wave. As all of this fighting, this skirmishing here in the jungle just to try to take out this ward. And you can see that Summit is up towards the top.
There's a lot of pings coming down from Kana. You could see actually there was a huge disconnect between what Kana wanted and what the rest of T1 wanted because they looked for that skirmish on the red buff. Didn't find anything there. Where Kana was spam pinging the, I need assistance in my lane. I want to try to kill this Gwen so we can actually get the Rift Herald dropped right now. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. They do have the group up here now. Summit's already used his mist. Opportunity looms here for T1. This is exactly what they want to do with this Rift Herald.
Oh, but the trap, look at this. I mean, there's 5 members of Live Sandbox on the top side of the map here, and they're trying to get on top of this one. Summit baits it in. That's a fantastic engage as the kick comes into Kana, but they can't kill him, but there's 2 flashes from the left of Live Sandbox, and look at that Fate's Call value. Gets the double knockup. They will absolutely crush T1 in the top lane.
And it's not just a crushing of this, it's a denial of the Rift Herald. So you get those kills, you get all that gold, you deny the Rift Herald drop, and now you have the double Drake advantage because you can rotate in and take that Drake for free. The only saving grace here for T1 is that Gumayusi is going to get a little bit of farm. He's trying to take the Raptors right now. He's going to get anything he can. But look, Live Sandbox not only going to get that gold and the Drake, but also maybe even a turret to go with it here. And it was so transparent what T1 was setting up for, especially when they showed on red and aggressively grouped up there. You're basically screaming to Live Sandbox, yo, we're going to make a play on top side. Watch out, because we've got a Rift Herald and we want that extra gold. And then the engage here is so perfect. Cask from Effort is amazing. Then you have the follow-up kick. Kana burns down. Yeah, you kill him. And then, okay, yeah, got a double top. But so what? Fate's Call for the pullback. And everybody's knocked up under turret. 4 kills here for Live Sandbox. It doesn't get better than this.
And Guma wasn't there. He was farming mid, right? But because of the telegraph play that you talked about, Prince was able to position on the top side of the map, right? It's not like these 80 carries have teleport and they're able to like get up to the top side, right? He was just in position to set up for the play that they knew was coming. So the trap is sprung. Live Sandbox get a really nice lead from here. And he talked about Fed rises. I mean, now it's not just him. A lot of the other players on his team with this extra gold running into the mid game, they're going to be loving it. I mean, the Gwen didn't pick up a lot of kills, but has 6 assists, and now Rise 3-0.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting out of control.
And because of the itemization here for Summit, he's very difficult to kill. He's very tanky at this stage. And then he's going to be able to very quickly, after he finishes his first item, grab his Zonias, because he's going towards that, right? When you have these items online, you can actually just very quickly transition to that secondary item. You're so much more powerful, especially when you have a Rise, who already has his Zonias, by the way. He's going to go for his Archangels here soon. And this is a lead that is starting to come out of control. And we talked about how both of these teams operate off of very early leads to actually close games out. And right now we know who's winning that argument. It is definitely Live Sandbox, but it's not just the gold. It's the Drake control, right? It's the map control they have, the turret lead they have. Like, they have 2 turrets about to go down, so it says 1 on your screen right now, but it's about to say 3.
Yeah, I mean, Live Sandbox have just been a little bit more demanding with some of their plays, right? They kind of demand T1's presence. And
they're going to be demanding right now.
They kind of get what they want, right? And okay, they throw down the Rift Herald. They're going to deny the turret from going down, so that's more gold that's still on the map that T1 just can't get. I mean, there's not a single turret that's taken down, whereas Live Sandbox were able to take 2 already.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things that happen in the early game that allowed Live Sandbox, like the Rift Herald that they essentially got for free.
Yeah.
That is really helping them to scale into this mid game.
I mean, also, Faker's one critical mistake of going for, I mean, just getting caught there in the mid lane. His Chains of Corruptions will land, but I don't think you win this fight. They're not going to actually go for a fight. Scummushi's just like, I'm doing this so I can get all the minions I can. I'm just trying to be relevant. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong here for T1. And the idea to go for that top side, I think was great. It was fantastic. It was 100% the right play, but telegraphing it so hard while hovering around red instead of doing as the pings were coming down for Kana to actually try to collapse on the summit faster and make the play happen faster means if you did make that play happen faster, worst case scenario, you only get the 1 charge and you get the top turret and then you back out. In this case, they didn't get the top turret. They lost several players. We don't even get to talk about the inner turret. And it was just, unfortunately, a very greedy situation for T1 that's punished. And his situation becomes very, very difficult to recover from the more fed this Ryze becomes. As he gets a needlessly large rod, actually, here. He is really accelerating this advantage. He's like, I'll just skip the Archangels.
Yeah. He's really getting out of control. And it's going to be rough. I mean, if you had a Varus that was shelling in damage and this game was a little bit more even, you had some range to try to push away some of the low range members on the side of Live Sandbox before the fight even starts. But when you get into a position like this where you don't really have vision and you're very far behind and you have to force things onto objectives where you don't really have much control, the Varus is going to lose value. And even the Lucian's not going to be able to just have the freedom that he generally does to just run around and pick up the scraps. And it's really rough with the comp that they have at this position to be able to make a comeback.
Yeah, and you know, it's a team that this roster of T1, right, not just T1 in general, we have to speak about these 5 players in conjunction with each other, are the type of 5 players who like to make those really aggressive set plays early on. We saw Owner look for that aggressive play top, ends up being a trade. I'll have to hold that thought as Keria flirts with danger.
Just Keria things.
But I don't know if Owner will be.
Oh. Yeah, they just decide, okay, he's a little bit fast. We don't have full vision on him. Effort was just clearing out all the vision in this jungle and trying to get deep wards in. Some of that has been cleared out by T1. With the Drake about to spawn, you can see Effort and his awesome vision score that you talked about actually in the stats. He's got the highest in the game now, and he's really just trying to set it up for this fight.
Taunt's down. They want to go in now. Live Sandbox don't have to wait for T1 to come to them. They've got so many engage tools.
Yeah.
They're actually just going to go back and start the Drake because Summit's on this. He does so much damage.
He just burst it down in about 5 seconds.
And T1 will finally get that mid turret, but it feels like a weak consolation prize.
Oh, hello.
They're not going to be able to get anything else.
All 5 of them. Yeah, the turret does go down, though. It was super low, so that was pretty much inevitable. It's the first turret, though, for T1 at 22 minutes.
And like I was saying before, this is the roster that... I'll never get this narrative point through if you guys keep getting close to Effort, okay?
It's okay. Here we go. This is the roster, yeah.
Yeah, so this roster of 5 players for T1 is a type of roster that makes those set plays, right? We saw Owner look for that aggressive play on the top side of the map to kill Summit. Didn't go well, ends up being traded, right? We saw that play to not only try to get the double turret on the top side of the second Rift Herald, but also steal red buff away and try to get a kill there. This is the, you know, double-edged sword that T1 play with, and when it works, it looks so amazing. And this draft, it really does empower that style of play, right? With the Galio, the Viego early game that's so difficult to deal with when you have Lucian Prio on the top side. But when it does fall flat, and when you do telegraph that top side, and when you do fall behind, this is when the cracks start to show a little bit here for T1's composition of players. Not their draft, but like this 5-player set. Roster 11, whatever you want to call it. Let's see how they can play from behind here to try to take this game back, because it's not over just yet, but Liv Sandbox's lead is starting to become so insurmountable that you're going to have to hope for a miracle if you mess anything else up from here.
Well, we're going to have a fight now as Summit's going to throw the ultimate out, just trying to survive here. Dashes away, the culling is not enough, and Fate will teleport down to the bottom side. So he gets there, and that forces T1 to back away, but now his teleport's down. And yes, we're getting the zoom in on, indeed, the current biggest carry on the Rift.
He's big. He does a lot of damage. He does it for a long time, because getting on top of him with T1's draft is very difficult to do now that Summit is well and truly online. Not to mention that Kroko is pretty big himself and hasn't gone back for a while, so we'll get that second item up very soon. With the vision control they have right now, if they had a little bit more idea about T1's reset timing here, I think they might actually start the Baron. They don't have perfect vision of this though, so I don't think that's realistic just yet.
Yeah.
But they have a really fast Baron clear.
Glad you mention it, because it is a big deal. The amount of vision control that they've had, you know, even though you look at the gold and it's like, oh, it's only 3,000 gold behind. Like, it feels like this game, you know, maybe T1 can make a play back, but a lot of it is the map control that Liv Sandbox have been able to have an iron grip on so far in this game. And the other unfortunate thing for T1 is that we really haven't even seen Gumayusi in a fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's been 25 minutes and Gumayusi's been farming minions.
And that's all he can do, right? And he's been doing a great job of it. You know, sometimes it's not the flashiest thing. Well, he might not get away with this time.
There we go, waiting for the flash. There's the cast, but now T1 trying to go forward. That is a big kick to knock everybody up, and Kana on the backside with the culling, trying to do some damage, but Summit is able to just tank so much of that. And there's just not enough damage on the side of T1. Liv Sandbox with nearly full health bars will now run to the Baron.
And that was one of T1's best opportunities to get back in the game. You have Gumayusi farming. You use him as a way to get a little bit more prio towards the Drake. And if they do collapse in like this and you're grouped up, you can almost rubber band slingshot your way back into the fight, turn it quickly, and then rush into a Baron. And suddenly, we're talking about an even game. But it doesn't work out because the engage is so good once again here for Liv Sandbox. So the trap, I don't want to call it a trap, it's just a really nice reaction here for T1. Gumayusi gets under turret. He is caught here, but look at the positioning of Faker. He only gets the solo taunt here. The culling is so far away that both Effort and Kroko can survive despite Gumayusi nearly executing them there. And that's enough. That's a win on the team fight where you can just walk away, grab Baron. You've got every objective in the book now as Liv Sandbox. That was just one chunk of damage away from being T1's gateway back into this game, as now Faker is caught alone.
Yeah, we got teleports coming in. We got Effort from behind looking for the cask, and he's going to hit him into the wall, but that's not enough to actually get the kill. Yeah, I mean, Liv Sandbox are basically just taking whatever they want. Everything has been very proactive, right? All the fights are on their terms, basically. They're the ones that went for the play on a Gumayusi, and the second they realize, like, oh, we're not going to be able to pick him off, they just fall back into kind of like a phalanx of 5, and they're pretty far ahead at this point in time that they're just able to fight it straight up and take the win.
Yeah. I mean, coming back in this game now requires just a face plant from Liv Sandbox at this stage. You now have so much pushing power too. With this Rise, the Callista is just going to destroy this turret so quickly. And you can just back off and take the soul if this doesn't work out. But if you get a kill, you win the game. So lose-lose here for T1.
The wave clear on the side of T1 is, because they're so far behind, it's basically just Varus. And that's not enough. They're too far behind to get close to the turrets. So as you mentioned, there's not really much they can do to stop Rise and Callista from getting in range. And once you got that, I mean, they're going to get this one inhibitor. Prince is in a weird spot here, but we got the Realm Warp coming on over, and he's like, who's trapped in here with who? I got my team with me. As Owner is just going to run straight into them in the fog, and he will at least be able to Heartbreaker over the wall.
Heartbreaker pretty strong. You know, the Unstoppable on that one, going to get you out of many an emergency, many a jam. But
it's pretty good, yeah.
Liv Sandbox are just, like I said, worst case scenario for them is okay, we just get a Drake and walk away. So worst case scenario is still very good. Whereas for T1, you survive. You're able to clear these waves out. You only lost one inhibitor, but you've lost a second inhibitor turret. And there's no objective for them to take on the map as they group up here. They can take the Baron Vision, which is irrelevant for the next 3 minutes. I'm looking at the comp for T1, and we've seen a lot of damage output from Kana. And once again, the tank line of Live Sandbox is still fairly killable if you do end up getting a catch on somebody with a taunt from Faker. You could blow up the Lee Sin, you could blow up Summit if you can't block that damage. But even Effort is starting to get really tanky. He's got to stop watching. He's going to look for a play here, potentially. Don't think that's where you want to commit, but it gets a lot of vision away.
And he has just been ruthless about getting all of the vision down everywhere. He has made this entire map just darkness for the side of T1. They haven't been able to make any plays really in this game. It's just been a suffocation essentially, and that is what happens many times in League of Legends when you do get behind. But specifically because of what Live Sandbox have been able to set up, it's been nice to watch. The free Cloud Soul comes in. We're 30 minutes in. It's been very clean. You know, Live Sandbox haven't really made too many mistakes. Now they're just looking to potentially end this game, although not sure about this one, Effort.
Well, you know what? He's okay. Just an Alistar, no real ranged follow-up damage. Summit can kite this.
Yeah, they were thinking about fighting, and then Summit just pops his ult, and they're like, yep, never mind.
Isn't it crazy that an assassin/bruiser champion that Gwen is, whose melee also can kite because she has an insane ranged ultimate that's going to do tons of damage through a choke and also slows? That's just an interesting thing to think about. Maybe thoughts for the day. Isn't that interesting? But Effort is 6 out of 10 kills, so 60% kill participation in this game, which is about 10% below his normal. So he's underperforming here, if you can believe that. In terms of what his normal is, he's just had such a fantastic game. Look at his goal difference over Keria, who unfortunately has just made very little impact because the game has snowballed so out of control so early on. And this is the way of both of these teams, you know? 4 Drakes to 0, 10 kills to 3, 7,000 gold to lead at the 30-minute mark.
And I'm curious to see what T1 are going to try. This is going to be the second bush they've gone for, and this one might be good. We have GA, though, as now we're just trying to get on top of Krako. He's got stopwatch, and he has a kick, and now he's got his
Look at Fate's damage!
He's just got way too much at this point, and the double kill will go the way of Prince. This one is just done and dusted, guys. I don't know what to say. Look at Fate up on the top side. He's like, I might as well go into my Zhonya's, get a little bit of help. Maybe he will actually go down. Owner trying to turn this one around. Viego is kind of crazy at times, but not crazy enough. As Live Sandbox, they'll take the win in the fight, and they will take game number 1.
And this is after a dominant last few games for T1 that Live Sandbox is able to take a first game upset win here. The series is not over by any means, but it is a great start here for a team that once again gets a solid draft, takes an early advantage, punishes some of the very telegraphed and broadcasted plays we had from T1 early on in the game.